Welcome to Geometry Unit 1, Day 2. Our lesson today is on distance and midpoint. Here you see the distance formula. Go ahead and take the time to write down the distance formula. It is the square root of the change in our x values squared added to the change in our y values squared. Take this time to write down the formula. Next, what we want to do is focus on the endpoints of our segment. So let's just take a look over here at this segment on our coordinate graph. This point right here is -5, 3, because we come over -5 and up 3. The other endpoint here is -2, -3. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take those x and y values and we're going to put them in our formula. If you look here, you will see that we took our x values, which are -5 and -2, and we put them together. We put our y values together, 3 and -3. When we square them, we get 3 squared. We get -6 squared. We add it, we get 9 plus 6 is 36. 9 plus 36 is 45. And the square root of that is 6.7. What does that mean? That means the distance, or the length of the segment, is 6.7 units. This here is asking the same question. It says find AB. You don't see a bar or anything. What does it mean? It means find the distance between point A and point B. Or what's the length of the segment? I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and set that up with your x1, y1, x2, y2. Push pause, work it out, and see what you get. Alright, when you set it up, folks, you'll see that 3 minus -4. We went ahead and put our x's together. We went ahead and put our y's together. We squared, we added, we square root, and we get 7.3. Here's a different way the questions could be presented. However, they're asking the same question. Find EF when point E is at this location and point F is at that location. Go ahead and try that out. Write the distance formula. Evaluate when you substitute the values, and let's see what you get. Here you are. This is a worked out problem. We put our x's together, 11 and -7. We put our y's together, 3 and -2. We squared, we added, we took the square root, and it's 18.7. What does that mean? That means the distance between those 2 points is 18.7 units. Well, how else can we put that? The length of the segment is 18.7 units. Here's our next formula. It is the midpoint formula. So if we have a midpoint, let's just think about this before we get into the formula. If we have a midpoint, it's the middle point right here, then we must have 2 endpoints. Therefore, over here is the midpoint. So our endpoints are on this side. So we're going to take that formula and we're going to answer some questions, find out the midpoint. Here's our first problem. Find the midpoint of segment GH. And we're given G and we're given H. And understand that if they want us to find the midpoint, then what are they giving us? They're giving us the endpoints. You want to get a picture of this? Here's G. Here's H. And the midpoint would be somewhere around here. Go ahead and set that up, simplify it, and let's see if you get the correct answer. All right, here we go. We put our x's together, we put our y's together, we simplified, and this is what we got. Every time you get an answer for a midpoint, because it is a location, you have to have parentheses, you must have your comma, you must have your x value, and you must have your y value. Okay, moving right along. Find the midpoint of segment AB. We're going to do this the exact same way. We're going to write the formula, we're going to substitute in the values, you're going to push pause on the video and see if you can do it. All right, here you go. Midpoint, here we go. Midpoint, we put the x's together, we put the y's together, we simplify, and we have the middle point between A and B. This is the midpoint, the halfway point. Next, we're going to talk about finding a missing endpoint. Not a new formula. We're going to use the same formula we had, which is the midpoint formula. We're just going to solve to find the missing endpoint. So here we go. We are going to find the coordinates of A if M is at negative 1, 2, and it is the midpoint of AB, and B has coordinates of 3, comma, negative 5. So here we go. What do you do when you don't know what to do? You start with a picture. So here is my picture right here. Find the coordinates of A. So if I'm looking for A, I need to find that. M is the midpoint, so here we go with M. And B is the other endpoint. So it says B is located at 3, comma, negative 5. So I write 3, negative 5. And M is at negative 1, comma, 2. Negative 1, comma, 2. What do you do when you don't know what to do? Well, you start with a picture. So what we're given, we put it in the picture, and what we're looking for, we write it as variables. We're going to start with our midpoint formula, and our midpoint formula is the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Our parentheses for location. All right, let's get ready to see how you set it up and how you solve. So as you can see, what we did was we separated. Here is our x value for our midpoint. We wrote it. Here is our missing endpoint with the given endpoint divided by 2. So when we solve, we multiply both sides by 2, and then we subtract the other endpoint, and we get x is equal to negative 5. Over here, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it with the y value. Notice the y value here is 2. We write it here. The other y value given is negative 5. The one we're looking for, we keep it as y, and we divide it by 2. In order to get rid of the 2, we multiply both sides by 2, and that's how we get 4. This is a minus 5, negative 5. We write the opposites. We're going to put plus 5, and we get y is equal to 9. So when we get ready to write this as a coordinate or a location, it is negative 5, comma 9. Here's another problem. Find the coordinates of J if K, negative 5, 10, is the midpoint of JL, and L has coordinates of negative 8, comma 6. What do you do when you don't know what to do? You start with a picture. So here we go. It says the coordinates of J, we don't know. If K is the midpoint, here's K, the midpoint, and L is the other endpoint. So they're giving us that this is negative 8, 6. They're giving us that this is negative 5, 10. And this is, we don't know. All right, so what we're going to do is, in the next slide, we're going to set it up. The midpoint is going to be equal to, the midpoint when we're trying to find our x values is going to be x1 plus x2 over 2. And when we try to find our y value, we're going to do the midpoint of the y's is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. So we're going to have two different equations set up. Let's see what we get. Here we go, voila. Negative 5 is equal to negative 8 plus x over 2. Once we multiply both sides by 2 and add 8 to both sides, we get x is equal to negative 2. Over here, we have the midpoint, which is 10. And then we have our other y value plus the y value that's given, all divided by 2. To get rid of this fraction, we multiply both sides by 2. So 10 times 2 is 20. We have 20 is equal to 6 plus y. And then we subtract 6 and we get y is equal to 14. So we write it as a coordinate, and we get negative 2, 14. This one is a you try picture, and let's see what you get. Hit pause until you have it, and then hit play so you can see the answer. Hopefully you follow these steps and you got negative 7, 0. Let's get started with some more midpoint examples, ones that don't look like our typical problems. All right, this one says if P is the midpoint of XY and XP is 8x minus 2 and PY is 12x minus 30, find the value of X. Well, we notice now that we don't have coordinates. So what do we do when we don't know what to do? We draw a picture. So here we go. P is the midpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and put P here. It's the midpoint of segment XY. What else do? We write in the given information. This is 8x minus 2, and PY is 12x minus 30. So what we've done is we've put the given information in the problem. Well, what do we know when P is the midpoint? We know that it separates the segment into 2 equal parts. So we go ahead and put an equal sign over every midpoint. We have an equation, so we can solve it. Take the time to solve it and then come back and see what the answer is. Here you are. 7 is equal to X. This question is slightly different. Pay attention to the end. It says find FH. We talked about earlier, FH is the distance from F to H. So we are definitely going to have to do what? Solve for X and go back and plug it in. What do you do when you don't know what to do? You draw a picture. So here we go. G is the midpoint. We said every time you see a midpoint, put it equal sign. It's the midpoint of FH. FG is 14x plus 25. Let's go ahead and write it in. 14x plus 25. And GH is 73 minus 2x. Go ahead and push pause, solve, and let me know what X is. And when you find out what X, we're going to work together to plug it back in so that we can find FH. Here we are. We have the setup here. Now what we need to do is solve. When we solve it, we find that X is equal to 3. However, in our picture, we have 14x plus 25, and we have 73 minus 2x. So what we are going to do is we are going to plug in 3. Everywhere we see an X, we're going to go ahead and plug in 3. So here's 3. I'm going to plug it in here. So when we do that, we plug it in and we get 134. So that concludes our video. If you have any additional questions, just go on Edmodo and send the class a message. One of us, classmate or teacher, will get back with you. Thank you.